I remember it pretty well, and I got a lot to say. Got a lot to say.
Well, I gotta eat, so.
All right. All right, I guess we're live again. Never done this before. I guess I should tweet this out too. Tweeter. GeekNights Live. The 5th season. Book Club review. Tweeter. All right, I guess we're good on that.
And I'm playing my eyebrow again.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, the 5th season. Wikipedia. Let's pull up the wiki. Oh, no one's watching this.
All right. Smart people.
Streaming, recording. All right, we're good. It's the GeekNights Book Club, and we are back on this spooky Thursday, October 26th.
It's scary because we read the book club in a reasonable amount of time. Ooh, spooky.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So, it's interesting that the 5th season is the 4th way.
What?
Because at the very end, we find out that the moon eats your soul.
What?
I remember spoilers. It's the book club. We are assuming that you have already read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin.
Mm-hmm.
If you have not read it, you're gonna be confused, and 2, we're gonna spoil everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'd suggest you read it. There are many other GeekNights Book Club episodes where we have done such books
Right.
as The Wheel of Time and The
So-
Prince of Nothing.
Right. So I chose this book because I'd heard a lot about it. You know, it happens a lot. I say this often, but I'm going to keep saying it. You hang out in nerdy communities. You hear something mentioned over and over and over again. It just keeps getting mentioned and mentioned and mentioned. You're like, oh, this thing keeps...
Gabbo.
And it's like, I keep hearing about this. I should check it out at some point. And then the book club is like, well, I have to pick a book. Hey, how about that one I keep hearing about? Oh, what's that? It won the Hugo Award, and the sequel won the Hugo Award the year after.
Interesting.
And I saw the author at Gamer X East last year, and she was cool talking about Dragon Age or whatever. And it's like, all right, this seems good to me.
Yep. So I really enjoyed this book, like straight up, and I'm gonna read the next 2.
Yeah, this is a fantasy sci-fi novel of high quality.
It did not disappoint, and I did very much enjoy. And again, last chance, we're gonna spoil it. We're gonna assume you read it.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the fact that it starts with the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of end of the world.
Yeah, it starts with the end of the world. It starts to set the idea of what does it mean for a world to end.
Mm-hmm.
And then it jumps into all these different stories that are actually just different parts of the same story.
Yeah, I think that is the number one genius part of this book, right? Is that we already read Hyperion, which did a Canterbury Tale situation. And here, you think you're sort of getting that, right? You've got these different stories of different characters. You know, even Prince of Nothing does the same thing, where every chapter goes to a different part of the story, focused on a different character, and just like Snatch, at some point they're all going to crash into each other.
So, no spoiler here, but if you ever watch Westworld, the new one, which is fantastic.
Does the same thing?
It does something very similar that is... It's very similar and very well done and amazing.
So in this book, I got a little suspicious early on because the stories really didn't fit with each other.
Well, one of them didn't fit with the other 2. One fit, and one of them was the world's fucking ending.
Right, one of them, it's like there is a season happening, and the other ones, people were just like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, is the season really far away from them? I'm like, I went to look at the map and try to figure it out. Because basically, you have this world where they've got spring, summer, winter, fall, but they also have what they call our seasons, or the 5th season.
Which is just Apocalypse World, the RPG, guard your gates.
There are different apocalypses that happen randomly throughout history, and they always end up winning in the end, and they don't completely wipe out humanity, but they do a bunch of damage, effectively erasing civilization.
Well,
and you can see the remnants of the previous civilizations.
The dead civs.
Which makes you, and that's how you know that your Civ is at least better than theirs, because if they were better than you, they wouldn't be alive. And
at the same time,
it's still being alive proves that you're doing better than them.
It's how you quote unquote know, because it's very interesting to see this overarching theme that over time, a world like this, because at the end of the book, you get the appendix that lists.
They're on a world that's super dangerous. It immediately reminded me of the end of Player of Games.
Oh, with the
world,
fire planet with the ring.
The fire planet that has a ring of fire going around and burning it over and over again. And they live on the planet as soon as the fire goes away, and then they wait a long time, and the fire comes back, and they run away.
Well, I think the fire is going in a ring. They just always stay ahead of the ring, like in that moving castle or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But that totally reminded me of that immediately.
But the conventional wisdom of this world is interesting because there's definitely this very strong idea, at least from our main character, and all the schooling that brought her to the point that she was at, that any remnant of any civilization, any calm, anything that didn't survive a season is clearly worthless because they're dead and we're still alive. Therefore, anything that is old and didn't survive is worthless and you should avoid it. And over time, you have this society that is increasingly hyper-static and hyper-focused on these very narrow avenues of success.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at the time scales, and the actual time frame between these seasons can be thousands and thousands of years.
And somehow this stone lore has lasted, even though they don't care about old things. This stone lore is somewhat old enough that they know about these old seasons, even if they're so old, but they don't know about these obelisks that are flying around.
But they don't care about the obelisks because the obelisks are clearly a relic of a civ that didn't make it. Therefore, it doesn't matter what they are.
But the stone lore is a relic of a civ that didn't make it too.
No, because the stone lore is passed down among the civs that survive.
Uh-huh. Anyway,
but they literally ignore the relics, especially the obelisks, at least ostensibly. And the argument is the obelisks are a relic of a society that failed. Therefore, whatever they are should be ignored because the people who didn't ignore them didn't make it. So what the fuck did they know?
The people who made them didn't make it.
But obviously, that is kind of false reasoning.
Obviously.
Especially in light of the fact that these seasons can be thousands and thousands of years apart, and this other overarching theme that whether or not any individual civilization survives a season seems to come down to not really stone lore, but luck, because sometimes you just get fucked. The reality is that these seasons are by and large caused by things beyond the understanding and control of anyone involved.
It's just a super, super fucking dangerous world where all this awful shit happens all the time and everything sucks.
So a better
way more
civ,
dangerous than the Earth we live on. Imagine there's the super caldera out in Yellowstone or whatever that everyone's always afraid of.
Yep.
Imagine if that blew up and that was a constant fear. People were actually worried about that all the time, and there were many other things like it, and not just that one.
But imagine if they were afraid of that all the time, and the last time it blew up was 10,000 years ago, and yet 10,000 years later, everyone still is prepared for that exact same bullshit to happen.
But other
again.
horrible things like it are also could happen at any time.
But I guess the fundamental reasoning of that civilization, or those people, at least our main character, in relation to ignore the dead civs, they clearly didn't make it. I feel like the overarching story of the next two books will be how false that reasoning is.
Anyway, so the book starts to lead you on with this Canterbury tale focusing on different characters, and yet then it pulls a switch I've never seen before. I mean, it's sort of like, it seems like an obvious thing that someone could have done, maybe someone did, but I've never seen it before, where, it's all the same character at different points in their own life. It's just that character's life was so different at different points in her life. The main character, her childhood, her upbringing, her old life, or middle-aged life. We don't see her old life. It was her life was so different, and she changed her name so many times and became a different person, so that the three different stories really seem like different people. And then you realize it's all the same person gradually. I got suspicious, but it's like, how could it be? These worlds are so different. This one's in a season, and this one's not, and this one's... It's like, how could this can't possibly be the same, And then eventually it's like, nope, it is exactly what I suspected. Good move. Well played. Well played.
So in light of everything I said before, there's another point that the book makes repeatedly and very explicitly, that the most interesting story about a thing, like a history, a people, or whatever, is to notice the things that are conspicuously lacking that you wouldn't think about. Like, is there something that never gets brought up? What's the elephant in the room? And this point is reinforced gradually as you see things like, no one cares about the stars because why would you ever look up when all the danger is below you? Like, even our main character doesn't think about the stars until she's out on an island, which she didn't think people lived on, and there's people out there. No one talks about islands because clearly people don't live on islands.
Because islands are hella dangerous.
But then there's these people on this island who appear to have been living there for a long time. And when she's out
in
there,
stone lore, and you just you have faith in this stone lore because that's what's keeping you alive. But meanwhile, there's people who don't know about it are doing just fine. There's a world outside of the
Yonkers.
The mind trap that has been made for you by the society. The society is really restrictive, right? It's like they have these use castes, right? It's like you're in a particular use caste.
Yep, your name is basically your first name, why you are useful,
Scott,
and what city you live in.
Scott, computer person, New York.
Yep, Rim, computer person, New York.
Right. It's like so. And it's like, and that's what you do in life, and you obey the stone lore, and the stone lore you just take as granted. You're not really questioning anything.
Take it for granted.
Yeah, sure. And you're just trying.
That's an origin joke.
You're just trying to survive in this awful world.
But all these little things around that point of what is missing, like what is not talked about, and there's subtle things like the stars or the islands. Like islands don't exist because why would anyone live on them? And then there's people on the island,
right.
And it sort of makes sense because even if people settled on that island right after the previous season, they could live there for thousands and thousands of years before another season.
Yep.
Very few civilizations on real Earth have made it thousands of years.
Right. So that's another thing is that there's this trope I see a lot that I talk about a lot where of the sci-fi thing where the people are trapped physically trapped, right? In a dome, or Logan's Run.
Yep.
Or what's the one we did for the book club where they were underground with the helmets?
I already forgot.
You know the one.
Yeah, but I already forgot what that book was.
Yeah, but anyway, there's a lot of these sci-fi fantasy books or whatever, especially sci-fi, where the people are sort of physically trapped in some location. They don't know about the outside world. Anime does it a lot, where there's a wall around the society or something, right? Big O is sort of one of those, the inside and outside the dome situation. But here, there's no physical trap, really, right? Even though many of the
wool, it was wool.
Wool, that's the one. Wool over your eyes, right? We should have figured that out. But here, instead of doing a thing like Logan's Run, where they're physically trapped in some horrible dystopian society underground, they can physically freely roam everywhere. But
the Origins can't. The Origins are effectively trapped,
sort of, but. There's no physical wall around all of society.
Well, yeah, regular people could just get on a boat, like that island. Island where they keep pirating, like no one went and got them because everyone assumed that it was some other local comm.
But the point is that there's still this mental wall around the society, and thus a lot of the same things that happen in stories that follow that trope happen in this. Like, we've discovered this hidden society of people outside of the civilization that we were aware of. We learned things that, there's actually this whole other way of life and other things going on that were kept secret from us all this time, right? As all those same things happen in the 5th season, even though it doesn't have the same premise of the trope.
Nope. So in terms of those absences again, the moon is never mentioned at any point in the book.
The nail of heaven.
And
then
then
actually the North Star is not the moon.
And then the moon is literally the last line of the book of, you ever heard of the moon?
Yeah, and it's like, what?
So I saw that coming from pretty early, like almost after that long explicit bit about look for the absences. And then all the bits with stars and everything, I realized, and I started paying attention to about a third of the way through the book, that the moon was never mentioned ever.
That's
even
no
when
moon.
She was outside looking up and talking about the stars. Like, the idea of the moon never really came up ever. And then there was another bit where they start talking about why is the evil Earth so pissed. And no one really remembers, but wasn't the oral legend something like, the people of Earth killed his son? And who could be the son of the Earth? Perhaps the moon in a world like this. And then also, there was a point where they said that maybe it wasn't his son, but some people say that they destroyed his favorite glass knife.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed the Earth's favorite glass knife. And near the end, reinforcing my idea that the moon was going to be evil Earth's son, when Alabaster shows up after he destroyed the world, really started the destruction, there's that big glass knife leaning on the wall. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, and there's nonsense about it. And it seems to be tied to the same thing that's tied to him bringing up the moon. Pretty sure the whole rest of this is about what's up with the moon and why there isn't a moon anymore.
Yeah, there's definitely this secret past that I didn't think we were actually going to see a lot of that, terrible secret of the past.
I think we're going to see it all. I think the Guardians know a lot and are evil.
But then...
They're no good.
Then as soon as we went to that place... in the Guardians had with like the room where the socket. It's like as soon as you saw that, it's like shit, son. There is a terrible secret to space, and I gotta know.
That was one of my favorite scenes because there's a secret.
You went from not even knowing about it. Usually, it's like there's this looming terrible secret to space. Like, ooh, what's in the thing? We're not gonna tell you till like chapter 10. It's like we're gonna reveal the thing exists and go there right away. I'm like, oh snap.
Not only that, but they reveal it. They don't tell you what it is, and then immediately, like that Guardian shows up, and that other nonsense happens, and then that Guardian takes her aside, and she thinks, oh, he's gonna kill me, or she's gonna kill me. Like I'm done.
And that Guardian ends up getting killed instead.
But instead, the Guardian's like, so did you touch it? And she's like, what? Did you touch it? That's important.
Because the Guardian thought she knew more than she knew.
Yup. And then you learn a bunch, but you don't learn enough. And then the other Guardian comes in and pulls the chip out of that Guardian's brain. And
yeah, it's like the Guardians are like the most fascinating thing, right? Because, okay, so you got normal people. Then you got Origins.
Which are as powerful as wizards in The Prince of Nothing. They are.
Like in Dune, where all the magic was based on the spice and the ecology of the planet Arrakis. In here, in the 5th season, all of the magic is based on rocks and geology.
Yep.
Right?
Like to the point that they call scientists geomests because all science is rooted in the earth because that's the most important thing.
Right. Everything is about geology here. The magic is powered by geology. Everything's geology. And the people who practice wizardry, right, some of the people are just, they're pretty much just born, oh crap, I'm born a wizard. I have magic powers. I'm dangerous. They're basically treated like X-Men. There's the obvious allegory of racism and persecution that's going on.
Yep.
They have a racial slur for them.
The Ragas.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same story as X-Men. People are born with powers and then they're shunned by their families. Some of them are made useful through training at Professor X's Academy, and some of them are killed, and some of them are horribly tortured.
But Professor X's Academy seems more like Magneto's.
Yes, it does. It's not the greatest. But it does teach you skills, and you get to go on missions to help people nominally.
But there's where the Guardians are the most interesting, because they're so unnerving, and there's all these moments where a Guardian appears and you expect a certain sort of interaction to happen reading the book. Like, all right, there's Guardians here. They're going to talk.
It's like these Guardians are presented as these people who are really running the show, are even stronger than any Origin, right? They can kick any X-Men's ass with their magic powers, right? Everyone's super subservient to them no matter what.
You get little things like Alabaster tells her, do not let him touch you with his skin.
Right. They constantly have this like question of like, who is the boss of the Guardians? And you don't know. It's a super mystery. It must be God or something. Who even knows?
Yeah.
So Guardians are super scary, yet even though some of the Guardians act in a super scary way, some of the main one is like super cool and he doesn't.
Well, it's more than
most of the time.
They're inscrutable. The actions that they take me as the reader by surprise. Like that one shows up when Alabaster.
They don't follow any pattern of what you would expect from that kind of character in any other story.
Yep. Well, the one that shows up in the town that gets destroyed by the volcano and just immediately tries to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one, the main one who shows up again after he pulls.
He's like the super cool character. I just like him so much.
Oh, he is a great character. However,
it's like that's the character. It's like, please go back to that character. Please. They're so awesome.
The best character in the entire book, however,
is the sexy pirate.
Is the pirate captain.
Oh, yes.
That character.
I agree.
Is the sexiest person I have ever read about in fiction. Like I am hard pressed. Like this is Akio level, but not evil. As far as I can tell, he's just great.
He's just an awesome pirate guy.
He seems
it's
to
like
have...
It was like if BK was sexy.
Yeah, he seems to have no character flaws. He's bisexual. He's polyamorous. He is hotter than God.
And a pirate. And a good pirate.
Yeah, he's great.
And a wizard.
He's great at pirating,
Yeah.
but he's also a good person. Basically, everything about this guy is great. It's like the one person you just want to win, and then he
Want to
doesn't.
have sex with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
I love that bit where, because obviously Alabaster is probably pretty gay and does not, there's the whole...
He is the most gay. What are you
He's
talking
like
about?
99% gay.
999% gay.
Yep. And they're doing their weird...
I knew that from like page 2 because it's like she sent the main character is sent to go like have sex with this dude, right?
And he's like,
because they're likely to have awesome wizard babies because
Yep.
they're both awesome wizards, and she like doesn't want to do it because
And he also
she
doesn't want to do
him,
it.
But then he also doesn't want to do it, and I'm like, oh, he's gay.
Yep.
He's gay. Oh, I'm right. He's gay.
But then when the pirate captain, they both want him, and the pirate captain wants both of them, and the way that resolves into just, okay, they're all together now.
Ooh, baby.
That's just how it goes.
Sexy.
Yeah. Though along those lines, in general, too, in terms of, aside from Origins, the way the rest of the world is presented is very interesting from a just, modern fiction perspective, because there's trans characters, there's gay characters, skin colors all over the place, and a lot of these attributes are very casually used, and it's just, I'm happy to see interesting representation across a broad spectrum.
I mean, this book is written by a nerdy black lady from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what you expected. I mean...
it's so not par for the course with fantasy fiction.
Except for, Ursula K. Le Guin or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So, there you go. Carry that torch.
Yep, but I very much enjoy that aspect of these books a lot. But that pirate captain...
We can't get away from Sexy Pirate Captain.
No, I started reading it because Emily...
The only bad thing about Sexy Pirate Captain is he doesn't show up till later in the book.
And then he doesn't make it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he goes down in a pretty awful way.
Oh, no. Sexy Pirate Captain.
Well, I mean, the way he goes
Why?
down tells us exactly why you don't want one of those guardians to touch your skin with their skin. But now I really want to know what the secrets are, and I want to know everything. I want to read the rest of these
and
books.
I've heard from some reliable people that book 2 and 3 are not on the same level as book 1, but it's I don't understand how that could be. Book 2 also won the Hugo Award, and I don't know, book 3 just came out super recently. And it's how could that possibly be bad? I can't even imagine, but I'm going to find out for myself. I held back on reading more book 2 so that it wouldn't taint this episode of Geek Nights.
Yep.
But I don't got to hold back anymore. Except Mario Odyssey's coming out in 3 days.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to say about the 5th season? Oh, one thing I do want to say about is that even though this is a 3-book series, right? I really actually feel this is one negative about the book. I feel like you didn't really get your money's worth with book 1 in terms of length. I feel like
it's 512 pages.
Sure, but it feels, story-wise, it feels like, essentially the way it ends, it feels like it really is just the 3 books could have been 1 book. It doesn't feel like a 3-book, even though I haven't read book 2 or 3, it doesn't feel like book 1 of a set. It feels like the first chunk of one complete book got ripped out.
But at least it ended on a huge revelation and a coming together of all the ideas.
It did.
It ended on a good beat of, have you ever heard of something called the moon?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, other books that had, Wheel of Time books, just kind of stop. And then the next book just starts, literally.
But they're so enormous that
Yeah.
you're tired at the end, and that's why it feels like a complete thing. They also
Well, the later Wheel of Time books do not feel like a complete thing.
Oh, okay.
They
Well,
do literally. I literally, book 8 or something, I hit the end, and I hit next, and I was like, oh, shit, it's done. And I just opened book 9 and just immediately hit next.
Oh, okay, because the ones that I read, all of them built up and eventually ended on a major confrontation between the main character and the major evil, right? And then,
you think that all of that gets resolved so early in those books?
Right, but I'm saying is that all the books I read in that series, that's what happened.
You're at 4 or 5, I
something
wanna say.
like that. But the end of the book was always a confrontation with major evil, right? And the same way that Star Wars Episode 4 ends with a fight with Darth Vader, and Star Wars Episode 5 ends with a fight with Darth Vader.
But if this had ended
and Star Wars Episode 6 ends with a fight with Darth Vader.
If this,
right?
The thing is, I wonder if the next book will continue telling all these 3 stories as they come together further, further, or will it now just pick up from this moment where Alabaster asks her to continue the apocalypse?
I hope it does continue from that part, because I don't think there's too much more from the past we need to learn about the, Sanite, or I guess that's
Cyanide?
But I can't pronounce.
She's not sure what name she wants to use because it's interesting how...
That's why I just keep saying main character.
Well, because the book is structured in such a way that you see these 3 different people and then it's revealed that they're the same person at different stages in their lives, which sort of lines up with the like child, woman, crone thing that is done in literature. Mm-hmm. But simultaneously, she has this self-awareness of not caring about the overarching plot and is very conflicted about who she really is because the reality of these 3 different lives is a very important part of her character.
And the thing is, the really crazy thing is that, like, she's obviously, because you're reading a book, this in the meta, that she's like a central character in like the whole world picture, but she, as a character, is only focused on going to get her child.
Yep.
That's all she cares about, at least in that one,
when
in
the Stone Eaters,
in the present timeline.
Everyone around her, especially the Stone Eaters, are like, you were the chosen one, and she's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, she doesn't care. Like, yeah, it's like this is the great mystery of the Stone Eaters. Don't give a shit. Gonna get my child.
Like when a Stone Eater shows up, I'm like, oh my god,
where did my kid go?
Like she finds anything interesting. I'm like, let's find out. Push that lever. Do a thing. Follow up. And she's
like, oh, I just want to find my baby.
She cares about the opposite of what I care about.
Which is interesting because she didn't care about her first baby.
Well, she did.
Sort of. Not as much as she cares about the one now.
Well, because there's nothing to do for the first baby.
Sure.
I mean, she did everything she could for that first baby.
Kinda.
From her perspective, that was the best thing for that baby. Because she lived through the Fulcrum training and she lived through her life at that point later, and she definitely made her decision that death is preferable to slavery. And I like,
especially after seeing the nodes or whatever.
Yep.
The nodes are the problem.
That's a great moment before you know what the nodes are, where she's like, blah, 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 I don't want to get stuck in some backwater.
That's another situation where like they talk about nodes and then like a chapter or 2 later, you go in the node and get the whole deal. You don't have to like wait for the mystery of the nodes.
But we
are still waiting for the mystery of the socket.
So there's that moment where she says like she's sympathetic to what she believes the person in the node is doing. She's like, yeah, I guess we should help them out. And then Alabaster pauses and he's like, you've never been to a node, have you?
Nope.
You've never been to the West Indies.
Nope.
So shall we go? And how he doesn't really need to explain it. You just get this very like the slow reveal. Like obviously they go in, they see what happened, they leave. But the way that chapter is written is almost like someone coming into a room and just looking bit by bit at all the things at the room, and then environmental storytelling does its thing, and the full gnosis is revealed just by seeing the remnants of an event that happened. Mm-hmm. That was a very well-written scene.
I also say Alabaster, right, is like, he's way cool, and it's sort of like it's just fun to have that kind of character around who's ridiculous, insane, powerful, like having a level 20 wizard in the party.
Yep.
It's sort of fun in just sort of that raw, nerdy kind of way. Like, oh my god, this guy's so strong.
Well, it also makes you feel like together they're invincible.
But they hold it in check and don't just ruin everything because you got this guardian situation going on. Right?
Yep.
He can't just go and do whatever. He's got to actually sort of do his job, but because he is so powerful, can sort of get away with a lot.
But that's it. The power of the Origins is revealed to be ridiculously ridiculous right away, and the more you learn about it, the more ridiculous it seems, and you start to wonder more and more, like, wow, why does Alabaster put up with any of this?
Why did the X-Men put up with the stupid U.S. government always trying to make Sentinel programs?
Yep. But then, bit by bit, like every new thing you learn about the Guardians makes you realize why they're in power despite the Origins all being gods.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really just interested to see how this all shakes down.
Or the Guardians got some sort of cyber implant of awesomeness, but also it freaks out and is being controlled by some sort of central AI, who knows what.
I do also appreciate how the storytelling, the narrator uses the second person a lot, and who the narrator is sort of gets revealed later. And I thought that was really interesting because the writing style is very conversational and very it definitely has its own beats that I've rarely encountered.
Yeah, it didn't fully pull out to a Princess Bride level to where you see who the narrator is talking to or anything like that.
But it gets close.
It gets close.
Because the narrator will be like, all right, we got to back up a little bit.
It'd be like Princess Bride if you saw Grandpa, but you didn't see what's-his-face in bed. Right?
Yep. So yeah, I have other thoughts that I kind of want to just reserve until I see how this all... There are threads that I don't know if they will be meaningful or not. And there's allegory that I don't know if I'm reading too much into it or not. But I'm hyper-focused on this what is not described, because that is a very powerful storytelling mechanic, to tell someone, hey, the things that aren't said are the important parts, and then to tell a story and not say things, which this book is doing very much so.
Well, I mean, I'm focused mostly on, of course, the X-Men persecution story, because that seems to be like the central obvious one that's pushed really hard. And then obviously I'm focused on secondarily The Terrible Secret of Space, because I'm Scott Rubin and I like The Terrible Secret of Space.
I'm just very
In
interested.
this case, The Terrible Secret of the Moon, the Socket, the Other Side of the World, the Obelisks, the Stone Eaters, what their deal is, anything like that. I got to know the deal.
Yep. I'm just mostly invested in the fallacy that dead civs are dead for a reason, and the idea that not everyone has control over the extrinsic disasters that might befall them.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that can happen to you. Like, if a cosmic ray came in and killed me somehow in this room, there is literally nothing I could have done to prevent that, and thus, there is no value judgment to be made based on that fate to any decision I have ever made in my life.
All right, so I just want to guess what The Terrible Secret of Space is.
All right.
My guess is that on the other side of the world, like the moon just fucking crashed into the earth because some origin badness, probably. And that's why this season's all the time, because the earth is all fucked up because there's a moon smashed into it. And the socket is probably from like a piece of moon that landed there, and the moon is what, gave people powers and shit.
No, I think the socket is what was used to I think it legit that manufactured obelisks, and the obelisks are something very specific, like ships.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
That's what I think. Something like that.
But yeah, the Stone Eater's in the obelisk, like flying it around.
I don't know if the Stone Eater was trapped in the obelisk or if he was using the obelisk. Maybe people play God trap Stone Eaters in obelisks.
There's one really good part of the book. It's like one of those short in between the chapter things that's sort of like an aside.
Yep.
And it's like, well, it's a good it's like, oh yeah, this world, this and that, and people are like this. Well, it's a good thing that people aren't the only intelligent life on this world. And I was like, oh, that's so good. So good.
I do wonder if Evil Earth will actually be a person, like a thing of some kind other than just literally a planet.
It's the moon? I don't know.
Because the implant that the Guardians get appears to be able to fail in a weird way because that Guardian went crazy.
Right, I think that it can, the implant
like it tapped into something that's there.
Yeah.
Almost like, because in Wool,
it's creating some sort of connection with something, and
like the radio signal in Wool, which I think I can say because that's not a spoiler unless you know other things.
Some sort of a soul or demon or something in there.
Yeah.
Like something along those lines.
Like it's almost like maybe there's a radio transmitter somewhere that's transmitting crazy bullshit, and the Guardians plug that into their brain, and they're barely holding on to their sanity using it.
I don't know, something.
Some nonsense like that.
Anyway.
Also, I want to see what Tonki's deal is. Like, I want to see Tonki...
Oh, you mean...
the scientist.
Right.
I like the scientist a lot.
I love how that character, that totally got me. I didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming at all.
Well, you actually had asked, you had discussed something about it, and I was like, oh... Because I had already read it.
I got up. I was right before the point where her deal gets revealed.
Yeah,
and I was just
and you
like,
started talking to me about it, and I'm like, "Well, you don't know the deal, do you?" And you're like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Oh."
I was like, "Tonki seems cool. I wonder what her deal is."
She seems a lot like an anime character to me. One of those characters in anime who's like, "Ooh, I gotta learn all the stuff. I'm the science girl with a whole bunch of papers, trying to learn everything." And then the fact that character was actually came back in the other timeline and bumped into the main character again is like, whoa.
And also, I like how she's that kind of tinker character who will obviously is hiding a lot and
she's
knows
like,
secrets.
From Chrono Trigger, the girl you meet with the the mechanical girl.
Luca?
Yeah. It's like Luca.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's that kind of character. Anyway.
So yeah, well, I'm gonna read at least the second book, and
sure.
The second book would have to somehow be really bad for me to not read the third
How
book.
could it be? I mean, some people said it's not good, but I can't imagine it being.
Well, so the people who seem to have said that didn't really say it's not good. They said it's not great. Like, it's not as good.
All right, well, we'll see.
But at the same time, like, I've read a lot of, if I eat a perfect steak and then I eat a steak that's only 80% as good as that steak, that's still a good steak.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this shows the all the hype that I heard for many moons about N.K. Jemisin was true hype. So
you say many moons. I feel like there's between 0 and 1 moons remaining.
You probably
in this book.
can't go wrong reading any other novels by N.K. Jemisin based on this one.
I could definitely fall for that.
Mm-hmm. All right, I hunger.
I also hungered. So let me stop all the streams. Oh, a bunch of people slowly.